You're listening to the Outfitter Pros podcast, the show for outdoor enthusiasts by outdoor enthusiasts. On the show, we speak with outfitter owners and outdoor professionals across North America and hear their stories of turning their passion into a profession. Whether you've been in the outdoor industry for years, are thinking of pursuing your own passion as a profession, or simply want to discover new outfitters for your next adventure, this is the show for you. So this week on the Outfitter Pros podcast, we are speaking to Brett Bloemendaal. I'm pretty excited about this episode. Brett is he's a fishing guide out west in North Dakota, and just super excited to kind of share his story. And Brett actually, so he's a former investment analyst who he left corporate America after 16 years to pursue his passion at fishing. So he's a professional guide on Lake Sakakawea in North Dakota, and he runs a growing YouTube channel, Bloemendaal Fishing, which kind of complements his guide service as well, just allowing him to teach and inspire thousands more people online. Cool little fact, he's also a published author and released his debut memoir, Fishing for More, in September of 2021. So excited for this episode. Without further ado, let's get into our conversation with Brett. Well, Brett, man, welcome to the Outfitter Pros podcast, man. I'm super excited to have you here today and to hear a little bit of your story. But man, how you doing?
I'm great, man. Super happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So it's always, I love talking to all of my guests, but anytime that somebody's like a fishing guide, I really love it.
Yeah,
So,
I get it.
that's my passion, is fishing. So there's all kinds of things that I want to talk to you about today. You're a jack of all trades. And I don't know I don't even know if I can say that you're not a master of none, right? I don't even think that's how the saying goes, but you're a jack of all trades, and you've probably mastered some. There we go. Jack of all trades,
Sure.
mastered some. So, because we can't get too lofty and prideful and say we've mastered them all.
Right. I mean, I kind of like to say that a lot to people. Like, I'm just somebody that is lucky enough to do it way more often than they do. And I know that I can help them. There's always somebody better than you at whatever you're doing. Right. So I don't like the terms expert and master and all that kind of stuff, but it gets thrown around too easily, I think.
Yeah, man. I love that. Yeah, man, I think that's a good way to look at it, right? You just are fortunate to get to do this a little bit more than other people. So
yeah.
So let's dive into that. So I want to, I always like to talk to my guests, about what they're doing, what their business is. Obviously, the whole gist of the show is you've taken your passion and you've turned it into a profession, but let's talk about like how that passion even began. So you actually wrote a book, a memoir called Fishing for More. Man, tell me about this book.
Yeah. So the book was something that I wrote after I started the guide service, and writing's kind of been a bit of a side path, not as much of a passion as fishing for me, but I've always loved doing it as a creative outlet. And I had some clients, because I used to be an investment analyst for like 16 years before I left to become a fishing guide. So I would tell that to clients. They would ask, what did you do before this? And I would say I was an investment analyst. And I'm like, oh my God, that's quite a story. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should write it. So, and to your point, it kind of starts back with childhood. Like, fishing was a huge part of my life as a kid. My whole family, my brother, my dad really got us into it, and his dad kind of got him into it a little bit. So we used to go fishing all the time at the Missouri River in South Dakota. And that's when I really got hooked. Like, I always loved doing it, but 12 years old, we went to the big Missouri River, caught some real walleyes, and I'm like, I'm all in on this. But then life happens, and I became an investment analyst. I did the practical thing. And, at some point, it was one of those deals where I didn't have a passion for that. It was a means to an end. And I was like, there has to be more to this than just kind of putting in my time. Like, we got back into fishing. My dad and I bought a boat together, and we started making trips. And I was just like, I'm spending all my time and money outside of work to go fishing. Like, what if I just flip this around? And that was kind of the start of it for me. So,
man, so and you and I talked a little bit about this on the phone when we were kind of scheduling this podcast. But like, what was the decision to be a data analyst? There we go. Man, after high school, like knowing that you love this passion thing, but like, what made you go into choosing being a data analyst?
And I guess more specifically, investment analyst, but
Or investment
that's
analyst, sorry. Yeah.
very close. But like, it's, and I talk about this in the book. Like, it almost sounds stupid now, but I was so intimidated by finances and money, and I was like afraid of that part of adulthood. And I thought, well, if I just like major in it in college and then go into that as a job, like then I won't be afraid of it.
Mm.
And so it was, again, it was very practical, but it was also like, not that I didn't know what else to do, but I was just doing something that I knew had to be a big part of my life, and I was afraid of not understanding it. And I was good at it, and there were times that I enjoyed it, especially early on, when I was younger and it was new and fresh and exciting. And then eventually I realized, like, yeah, this is just a job though for me. And if I have a chance to do something I'm passionate about, like that'd be the holy grail, right? So
Mm. Yeah, and you and I are about the same age. And I think so much of what our parents, like the whole generation before us was just like, oh yeah, you need to go to college and work for
yeah,
30, 40 years and then you can retire. And then you can
yeah,
enjoy the last 20 years of your life.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and at first, that was for me, it was the same. It was like, yeah, I need to do that, Dad. Sure. It sounds good. But then you find so much discontentment in that. So like in your when you were figuring out and through that process of like, man, okay, I enjoyed this at first when I was young, but what was that point for you where the discontent outweighed the fear? So like I like to think of this in terms of there's always a point where we get our fear often supersedes our desire to like fully, do something and be all in,
right.
right? This could be in our emotion, like in our emotional intelligence, anything, right? The fear always supersedes and holds us back. But when you can get to that point when the fear kind of drops down and just your desire and your passion can kind of take over and say, you know what, I don't care what happens. I'm just going to try it and do it. Like, what was that moment like for you? Like, how did you kind of work through that to say, screw
Yeah.
it, man, let's do it?
And it, like, I'd like to say that that's exactly what it was, but in a way, it was almost like a bigger fear came about that was bigger
Mm,
than the fear of starting it. So I started to wind up with some health issues, which I'm just kind of starting to figure out. And something about getting back out there, being active, being in nature, being outside made me feel better. And I had this gut feeling that if I keep doing a desk job, I'm just going to keep degrading. I'm going to keep feeling worse.
mm,
So at the same time, I was starting to dip my toes in, and I was doing some guiding, like in my paid time off and stuff like that. And eventually there got to be a point where I had used all my PTO to do guiding trips. And I was going from Iowa to North Dakota. It was like an 11 and a half, 12-hour drive. And I had three more people call me and ask me to do trips. And I asked my boss, like, any way I can get an exception for this? He's like, no, man, like you're full out. That's all you got. And I was just like, I had this moment where it just, I had always been so fearful of taking risks my entire life. And all of a sudden, it didn't feel like a risk anymore. It felt like the bigger risk was staying. And I
mm.
said, I guess I'm done. And I can't do this anymore.
Wow. And, that's been something that's been so interesting to me is the power that our mind like holds over us.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating, man. But like when I don't say you can control it because I don't know that you can ever control it. You can bend it to your will on occasion,
Uh-huh.
more often than not, if you
Yeah.
practice it. But it's at the same time, it's a practice, it's a discipline to like get your mind over these hurdles. Mark Twain, one time he said, I've been through 1,000 trials in my life, some of which actually occurred. And it's like
I love that.
most of the time, the trials that we're experiencing are built on a false belief that we
Yeah.
think is true, but it's not. And that's just a crazy journey. So much of that fear plays into that. But you just kind of answered this actually, like how you had this bigger fear kind of came in versus, that took the place of actually starting something new and exciting, which was just like staying. If I stay, then it's going to be bad for me. So like,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how, I mean, what was that like for you? And how did that really inspire you to start turning that passion into a business? Because you could have done anything else, right? Like you could have done any kind of other thing that took you away from a desk job, but what really inspired you to lean into your passion versus just doing an outdoor job per se?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, so again, like I said, part of it was I just knew that it made me feel better. But again, I could have gotten any outdoor job, right? So when when I was younger, like there was nothing that I wanted to do more than go fishing. And like if anything else came, if there was a chance to go fishing, that was it. And I remember my dad making a joke one time on one of our fishing trips. Um, Something about like, someday you're gonna find a girl and you're gonna get married and none of this is gonna matter anymore. And I was like, we'll see about that. Like, I'm sure that I'll meet somebody and I'll love them and I'll care about them, but I still have to be able to fish. So
Have
like
to.
that thing was always there, and I just couldn't think of anything else. Like if I'm going to do something and I'm going to make a change, I didn't want to make a lateral move. I didn't want to just make incremental changes. I'm like I feel like I'm at this point where I need to blow it all up, and if I'm going to do that, I better do it for something that I care about enough to make it work. And that was the only thing that I cared about that much.
That's really good, man. Yeah, I love that because there's a hint of like just throwing it to the wind. If I'm gonna blow it up, I'm gonna do it for something I care about. That's really, really good. That encourages me because like there's so much of my own business, my own journey in business and in life where it was like, man, I'm gonna, that switch for me was I was actually going to college and I was partying and like I cared more about partying than about school. And I dropped out halfway through my first semester and was like, man, I'm gonna move to Colorado and be a raft guide. And just like I cared about the adventure and pursuing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really good for me. Came with a lot of heartache and a lot of trials,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
was really good for me. And so like I want to talk about that because so much of when we launch into pursuing something new, pursuing a dream, pursuing a passion, the fears that come along with it and the hurdles and the walls that you're really going to run into along that path, they're there, they're inevitable,
yep.
they're going to happen, right? And I remember a mentor of mine one time told me I was going to start like an axe throwing business. I did start an axe throwing business, but he was like, Paul, are you passionate about axe throwing? And I'm like, um, not really, but it's a good business model. And,
Yeah,
I partner with breweries and I like to drink beer and I like to throw axes. So that sounds like a great combination.
sure.
He's like, well, the reason I ask is because if you're not passionate about it, when you hit those walls and you want to quit, more than likely you'll just quit. But
Hmm.
if you have passion for it, that will drive you through and allow you to break those walls down and keep pushing forward and have that perseverance that is really required if you're going to find success in something. So
Yep.
what were, when you left your job that is, man, hey, every couple of weeks, at least I'm assuming, right? Every couple of weeks I get a paycheck. It's pretty consistent. I get paid time
Hmm.
off, but now I'm going to start something for myself. There's nobody telling me what to do, which is great, but there's nobody telling me what to do, which
Hmm.
also is like, how do I do this thing? Like, what
Yep.
were some of those challenges that you faced as you initially kind of stepped into starting your guide service?
Yeah. So, I mean, the obvious one is how do you find clients, right? I think everybody's going to probably have that answer. And I definitely experienced that. Like, it took me some time. So, I needed savings. So, thankfully, I had a good job to provide me that savings and stuff. But for me, it was like I didn't realize how much I'll call it dirty work, for lack of a better
Mm,
word, was involved in this. It wasn't just fishing and having fun. It was like, if something breaks on your boat, you could take it to a dealer, but you don't make enough money perhaps to pay for all the fees and the labor charges to do that. So you have to learn how to do some things. If something breaks out on the water, can you fix it on the fly? You
mm,
know, if somebody's having trouble with their rod, like how I know how to spool up a rod and how to take care of my problems, but if I had two or three inexperienced people that are, bird nesting rods, like I got to figure out how to fix that for them now so they can get back on the water. So I knew there'd be some of that stuff, but I had no idea how much of it there was. So there was a learning curve for not just learning how to do those things, but how to do them quickly and efficiently to keep the day flowing. And I'd say besides that, like a lot of people use the term like in creative businesses, whether it's the writing aspect or like, musicians and stuff. But even for a guide service, I would say imposter syndrome was a big thing that I fought,
Mm,
because like even now after I've been doing this, I'm going to be in my fifth full season coming up. It's like, what's the difference between me and any other guy out there in a boat? You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm pretty accomplished and stuff, but like I said, there's always somebody that knows more than you. There's guys that have fished this lake for 40 years. And I'm like, so every once in a while that thought creeps your mind, like, what am I doing?
mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Even when you're doing well, it's like, did I just get lucky? Why do
right.
people want to fish with me? Like, so it's kind of just anytime you start your own business, I feel like there's a little bit of that. Why me? Why are people picking me? Right.
Yeah. So like, what do you do to kind of push through that? I mean, I've experienced the same thing, but like, how do you kind of work through finding that like that true sense of your identity and self and value, self-worth, right? Of like, no, like I am worth my weight, right? I'm good at what I do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work through that?
I think part of that is just every once in a while I go back through like my Google reviews, my comments,
Mm,
messages from people, photos, to look back and remind myself like we've had a lot of good days on the water. You know what I mean? Like it's been successful. And I think outside of that, just hearing other people talk about it, like every once in a while, I'm a big listener of other podcasts. I watch, a lot of YouTube content for entrepreneurs and independent creators, and to hear some people out there that have a million subscribers and making all kinds of money talk about imposter syndrome is like, okay, you know what I mean? Like it's everywhere. It affects everybody to some degree. So I'm not
yeah.
alone.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that too, because like that we often feel that way, right?
Yeah.
Especially being an entrepreneur. Like it's,
Yeah.
oh man, I'm alone in this. And I think that's the terrible thing about social media. Like social media can be good, but
Yes.
the terrible thing about it is like we only see the good stuff that people choose to
Yes.
post, right?
Yeah.
So we see our competitors who we think are just killing it. And we're like,
Yep.
man, they're so much better than me. And the truth is, man, they're suffering as
Yep.
equally as much as you are and
Absolutely.
struggling equally as much as you are. And that's one of my favorite things, that I've learned is that I think there's enough room for us all, right? Like you look at
Yeah.
any fast food chain and Burger King and McDonald's, for example, people prefer one or the other, right? And it's the same with guide service. It's the same with any
Mm-hmm.
kind of business. It's like if you can build your tribe of people, through just being your authentic self, through giving good value, through being a good guide, giving a good experience, and there's so much more to being a good guide than just catching fish all the time. Like I'm sure there's
Yep.
been times where you've probably been skunked and it's like, man, I can't make the fish bite. It's I can do everything in my power to put you on fish even, but if they're just not eating, they're not eating. And
Mm-hmm.
but to be able to turn that into a positive experience for a client and a customer, I think is really what separates the good guides from the great guides, right?
Sure.
So so yeah, in that early kind of stage, imposter syndrome, being a mechanic on the water, trying to learn some of these other skills that you just weren't aware of. Talk to me a little bit about like what was your primary kind of focus at first of like, hey, here's how I'm going to get customers. Like, how did you initially do that? Because there's going to be people listening to this show that might be in that initial stage, or maybe they've just not launched yet, but they're wondering, hey, how do I get clients? So, like, how did you go about trying to get people coming into your lead pipeline? I'll use some marketing language. How did you get
Sure.
clients coming in, right?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I noticed was a lot of guides were all about getting a limit of fish. And especially like there's certain lakes that are super, super competitive, so many guides. And I had heard stories from people that basically once you have your limit of fish, you're done for the day. If
Mm,
that's an hour and a half, if it's 4 hours, whatever, you're done. So my first thing was I put on my website that is not what I'm going to do because I don't want to quit because I love fishing too much. If we get a limit of walleyes, we're going to go look for smallmouth bass and then we're going to go fish for pike. Like we'll do whatever we can. So I tried to find little ways like that to differentiate it and say what I wasn't. But also like as time has gone on, I've tried to like, because like you said, there's a lot of fishing guides out there, but everybody's a different person. There's room for everybody. So like I try to not only sell the idea of a fishing trip, but me, like it's my personality, it's my way of doing things. if people like me, hopefully they'll come fish with me. And I think, you know, if there's one thing that I try to make different for me is that I think one of my biggest skills is like communication and teaching. So I think they're not only in a boat with a guy that's putting them on fish, but with somebody that can hopefully teach them how to do it themselves. And I feel like I'm really good at figuring out how that person needs to learn because it's different for everybody else. You can say a certain way of doing something to one person and it fits, and then another person's like, I don't understand what you're saying. Okay, well, think about it this way. Use another analogy. I don't get it. Well, what if I said this? Oh, now I know what you mean, right? So I think that's always been one of my skills that I kind of leaned on in the beginning, because if you're just starting out and there's guys that have done it for 30 years, like, again, why are they going to pick you? So you just have to try to find these little things that can maybe set you apart. And I've been fortunate to do that to some extent, I guess.
Right. That's, that's really good. And I think that's going back to that imposter syndrome, especially at first when you're starting a business, it can be really easy to try to put it out there like you're somebody that you're not,
Yep.
which actually can be really dangerous, because when people
Yep.
start coming out there and you're pretending to be somebody that you're not, then, oh man, it just heightens and compounds because you are an imposter. You're not that person that you're pretending to
Correct.
be on social media or however you're advertising yourself, right?
Yep.
So no, I think there's I think even now there is a shift in kind of the marketing world. So that's like, that's all I do is look at marketing all the time. And I think, and I see so many people out there that are just saying the same thing, doing the same thing as everybody else. And there's a shift, I think, that's kind of going back to people really value authenticity. People
Yeah.
want to see that. They don't care if you're the best at it, but they want to know you. They want to connect with you on a real authentic level. And I think when you can kind of let your authenticity shine through your messaging, through your marketing, man, that's really just going to compound you, one, growing, your tribe of people that you want to attract to your business. And then it's better for you because you get to fish with more people that you really enjoy fishing with, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure we all have experiences with people that are less than pleasant, clients. But man, I think it's really valuable in, being able to attract the people that you want. And so and I kind of I want to go back and I want to talk a little bit about, what you started your business, but I had a question about your book again. So when you wrote your book, your memoir, at what point did you do this, like after you'd started your business, or when did you write your book?
Yeah. It was after the first full season. And so we had just had COVID in that spring, but that was the
Mm,
first big COVID winter. And I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and then things didn't work out. She moved out, and it was like early November, and I got like all winter by myself, nothing to do. And I'm like, well, if you're going to dig into this, now's the time. So I punched it out from November through April, and then got an editor and had it published the following September. So
wow, man, is it on Amazon?
yeah.
Okay, sweet. I'm gonna
Yep.
order a copy of it because I'm definitely
Awesome. Thanks.
interested in reading about it. Yeah, for sure. Um, so there's two kind of things. So like your book is, man, just your story, your journey through your childhood to starting your business, um, talking about fishing for more. So I'm even interested in that title. Like, what does that title mean? What is fishing for more? What's the kind of the meaning of that?
Yeah, I mean, part of it was in the marketing side of things. I was trying to figure out, how do I make this a book that's clearly not just about fishing?
Mm,
Like, fishing was the vehicle for me to find more. That was what I was trying to get across to people. So whether that means, you know, I don't know, somebody wanted to start a knitting business, or they want to start a singing career, whatever it is, like, find your thing, your
mm,
vehicle that figures out your way to like explore your passion in life, because there's more to it than what we realize sometimes. So that was the goal that I was trying to get across. And that's kind of what the book is about. It's fishing adjacent, there's fishing in it,
sure.
but it's about the journey and the change that you go through in life and
Mm. Oh
stuff like that.
man. Yeah, that's really good because you're going to experience a lot of change throughout life.
Yeah.
People don't like to experience it, and sometimes people do, but and there's so many good things like in the change that you can grow from and learn from. And I think too, for the people that are listening, that are thinking about like, oh man, I want to start this. I want to pursue this passion. Man, check this book out. Go to Amazon, Fishing for More. Check it out. Listen to Brett's story and let it inspire you. And yeah, I'm excited to pick up a copy. I'm gonna order a copy after we get off this call. So
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah, for sure. Um, so when you think about running your business and using your passion to kind of drive for, I love this next question is like, and it goes back to what that mentor of mine told me is like, if you don't have passion for this, then you're going to quit. And so
Mhm.
this is what is your why? Like what is, tell me a bit about the essence of your passion. Like what's the why behind running your business?
Yeah, like for me, the why is like I had such like I always loved fishing as a kid, but something about getting back into it changed my life. Like that seems like hyperbole maybe, but it's not. And I just wanted to find a way to share that with people
Mm.
because I've fished with so many people that like had wanted nothing to do with fishing, never been fishing before, and I've never seen anybody unhappy or bored catching a fish ever.
Yeah.
So it just it seems like something that can just it brings people together. Whatever's going on in your life, you can put that aside for a while and share those moments. And I every group that comes through, like you always have that sort of that first day of a trip excitement. So
Mm.
like even, in the middle of the season, sometimes I can get a little bit, I'm a little tired, I'm a little worn down, but a new group comes in and they're like, I'm ready to go. It's day one. I'm so excited to get on the water. And like, that's right. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I love that. That actually kind of leads us into the next question. It's like, thinking about those experiences that you those connections that you get to make with your clients and you get to see them catch their first fish and just the joy that that brings to people.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what's been one of the most memorable experiences that you've had while running your business?
Yeah. So you had sent me some questions ahead of time, and this was the one that I was struggling with because um, there's been so many good ones. It's so hard to pick. But if I'm being very literal about this, the most memorable one, it's almost kind of a heartbreak story. So
Mm.
um, I was fishing with, and it's family related because somehow, so it wasn't a guiding trip, but my family comes, a couple times a year. I fish with my dad and my brother. Uh, but we got across the lake. It was a cold, windy day in October. Pulled around the corner. It's nice and calm. We're just gonna like take a breather, throw some casts, see if there's some fish in this spot. If there's not, we're gonna move on. And I don't know. It might have been like the third cast. My brother thinks that he's got a snag, and then all of a sudden his rod starts moving. Right? Okay, that's obviously a fish, and he gets pretty excited. And he starts reeling in a little bit closer, and it was the weirdest thing that I've ever seen. We're using snap jigging lures. I don't know if people are familiar with like glide baits and jigging wraps, but he had snagged a fish in the tail. So it's not a legal catch, right? But as it gets closer to the boat, we see what it is. It's the biggest walleye I've ever seen in my life. So I got a walleye down here, the biggest one I've ever caught. It's a 10 pounder. It's 30 and a quarter inches. This thing was at least that big, at least 30. Um, and it's just like skiing across the top of the water as he's pulling this thing back. So it's like the weirdest thing that I've ever seen. And I'm like, okay, let's just get this thing in the boat, take a picture of it. It'd be cool. I wish he got it in the mouth, whatever. And it was almost like the fish was playing possum because as it got right next to the boat, it's just laying there. So I just like, well, I didn't have the biggest net at the time. I've netted big fish in this net, but they're usually tired at this point. So I go and I fold it into the net and it starts to go like this. In the middle, the fish is folding in and then it kicks its head and its tail at the same time and shoots up 5 feet in the air, snaps the line, that's gone.
Oh,
And I jump up in the air, drop the net. My brother turns around just like, you got to be kidding me. Because we didn't even really think it was going to matter because he didn't legally catch it, but we just wanted the photo. And then all of a sudden it's gone and everything matters, right?
yeah, yeah.
So we recover from this a little bit. He picks up his rod finally 10 minutes later. Literally the next cast, he hooks into another big fish. And he's fighting this thing and he's bringing it in and it gets next to the boat. And it's one of the biggest northern pike we've ever seen. So a couple years prior, I had netted a 47-inch pike. It was close to 30 pounds.
Gosh.
I don't know how I got that thing in the same net. I have no idea. It was a miracle upon miracles. But I know I can't do this again. So we're trying to think of ways that we can do it. And it's got all these treble hooks in its mouth. So like best thing you should do is probably try to gill it and pull it up. But if it shakes, it's going to throw all those hooks in your hand and shred your hand. Like
Oh,
just try to get it in the net. See if you can. We tried, fish flip, ran, broke the line, and it's gone. So in 10 minutes, 2 casts, he had the biggest walleye of his life, the biggest northern pike of his life, and neither one got in the boat.
oh my gosh.
So sometimes it doesn't work out, I guess what I'm trying to say. There's heartbreak involved in this business, unfortunately, but that's the most memorable one. I don't know if it's a sick thing about me that I dwell on that, but yeah,
But
I'll never forget that.
they're the ones that got away, man. Like
Yeah,
every fisherman has the stories of the
yeah.
one that got away. Unfortunately for your brother, he had two in this within 10 minutes.
Yeah, it
Oh
was
my gosh.
the most insane. I don't we even made a video about it, like a documentary style video on the YouTube channel called like the most bizarre 10 minutes of fishing or something like that. And
Man,
I'll never forget it.
man. So let's talk about your YouTube channel for a minute because I think this is something that like, man, we all, well, I don't say we all, like, I think there's a part of every person that has an online business online where you need people to find you online. Like there's like, oh man, it would be cool to have a YouTube channel and just
Mm-hmm.
film myself fishing all the time and use this as a platform. So like what has that journey been like for you? Because YouTube is can be challenging at
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. So,
Um,
like, I guess kind of getting back to your original question, like, how did I try to set myself apart as a newbie? Like, one of my friends brought up the idea that he was starting to watch fishing channels on YouTube. He's like, you should start a YouTube channel. And I was like, I don't know anything about video or whatever. But then I started to think, well, that'd be a good way to, like, a proof of concept, right?
mm,
Like, here's me catching a bunch of fish. Why don't you come fish with me? And that's what it started as. And then all of a sudden, I really got into the art of it. Like, how do you edit a video? How do you tell a story? How do you talk more during the video, teach things, whatever it is? And then it kind of became a business upon itself, and it wound up kind of filling the gaps for me for the winter, because I
yeah.
guide open water, and then now I got something that I can do open water season 2, but I can also do it in the winter. And it has, there's evergreen content and stuff, so that's another source of starting to be another source of income, I guess. So I've always been a creative person. That's why I wrote the book, and I just love having that creative complement. Instead of just fishing, it's a way to put something else out there that hopefully people enjoy too. And it's another way to, I mean, like I said, I like teaching, so I can teach people in my boat, but in theory, thousands or millions of people could watch a video and learn something, right? So
Yeah. So like what kind of content are you putting out on YouTube?
I would like I think my best stuff now is it's a lot more, like I said, educational, how-to
Mm,
driven. So like one of my better videos I've done is like how to catch walleyes on jigging Raps and why they're so effective or something like that.
mm,
So I've done videos about how to find fish, locations, how to use your electronics and sonar, different techniques, presentations. And then there's like one of my buddies is along today and we're just going to have fun and catch fish and tell some jokes kind of thing. So there's
yeah.
like adventure videos and there's like educational videos and a little bit of mix in the middle. But
Yeah. So like I mean, because YouTube, it's a Google owned tool. And so
mhm,
like there's some kind of like SEO stuff that you can do to make
yeah,
your videos pop up because you were talking about like how to catch walleye and immediately I was like, that's a pretty good long tail keyword that you sounds like you probably did a little bit of research to see if people were
yeah,
looking for this. Talk a
yep.
little bit about what that's been like and like how are you researching what kind of titles to put for these YouTube videos. Like how are you finding or how are you getting people to find your videos on YouTube?
Yeah. So my first approach was the first full season that I did YouTube stuff. I wanted to make sure I was the Lake Sakakawea guy. So that's the lake I fish on in North Dakota, Lake Sakakawea. It's part of the Missouri River system. And there wasn't a lot of content. Like every once in a while, there'd be a big name like a Jason Mitchell or something that would do a video there like every other year, but there wasn't anybody doing it consistently. So I thought if I can fill that SEO search with
Mm,
my name and Lake Sakakawea, that's step one. And I kind of did that. Like if you Google Lake Sakakawea walleyes, you're probably going to see a handful of my videos. So that was the start. And then I realized like, okay, I got a pretty good following at Lake Sakakawea. I want to expand from that. So then I started diversifying the titles, broadening them, making it more like how to catch walleyes on jigging Raps instead of big fall walleyes in Lake Sakakawea.
Right.
So that's kind of the phase I'm in now, is like, how do I get other search terms? And I'll basically think of like, what are the things that I think I know how to do well? Google those things, find the videos that are really good, that have a lot of views, that do well in search, and then just try to do something similar, especially if I
So
think that I have something to add to it.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like what are you finding is important for that? Because like I know SEO as far as Google goes, and there's a lot of similar concepts. But
Yeah.
like when you're, because I've done a little bit of research on YouTube and how to kind of rank YouTube videos, but like, are you putting those keywords in like the thumbnail image, or like what? How could you kind of educate us and listeners that are like, man, I would really love to have a better and a more refined and defined strategy for YouTube videos. What would be like a couple of things, a couple of suggestions that you would give to us to help us kind of grow our following on YouTube?
Yeah. So I've learned that like the number one thing to help, if you want keywords somewhere, they should be in the title. Like
Hmm.
that's usually the number one thing. The description matters to some extent. The tags matter a little bit, but they kind of say like your title is your number one tag, and this other tags are just kind of like in case they misspelled this, whatever. So it's still good to fill out tags if you can. Um, the thumbnail, I think I've learned that like I had heard from some people, don't waste words. So like don't just repeat your title in your thumbnail. So if your title is how to catch walleyes and jigging Raps, your thumbnail should be like, I don't know, an arrow that points to the jigging Rap and monster walleye or something in text. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like diversifying that. The thumbnail, you're just trying to get them to click on it.
sure.
I don't think it has anything to do with the search, because I don't know that they know the words there. But also they're getting a lot better at hearing the words in the content of the video. So if your video is appropriate for the search, I think YouTube's going to know that now. So put some time into the title, make it a good title, but I think make sure that the content's relevant.
Yeah, that's great. What tools were you using to kind of do your research?
I A little bit of everything. Like I'm kind of a YouTube junkie
Yeah,
anyway, so that's what I watch the most of. So I would watch a lot of. There's a lot of like how to be a YouTuber channels, right? So I
nice.
just watch a ton of those things
Yeah,
because they kind of did the research into the algorithms and stuff like that and how they think it works. There's other tools like I don't have. There's a lot of add-ins you can get, and it's like some paid, you know, whatever hacker. I don't. That's the wrong word, but like, how do you hack YouTube
sure,
algorithm
sure.
tools? I haven't paid for any of that stuff, honestly. I just kind of watch what people think are the big hitter items, because I think you can get way too bogged down in
Oh yeah,
trying to play that game versus just making the stuff that you like.
right, right.
So I want to try to balance that out a little bit.
Yeah, and that's good too, because like even on the search engine side of things with Google, is they're really doubling down on just like quality content, right? Just like
Yeah.
the user friendliness of it,
Yep.
and is it good content, right? So
Yep.
you can learn how to do anything on YouTube, even be a YouTuber,
Yes.
apparently.
Yeah. How
So
meta, right?
right, I know.
Yeah.
Man, that's how I fixed my wife's car the other day. I
Yeah.
just
Perfect.
Googled stuff and I learned how to
Yeah.
fix her car, which is great. So no,
Yeah.
that man, that's really cool. I wish that I, was as I wish that I could lean into YouTube. And you probably could speak to this a little bit, right? It's like, any kind of profession that you're in. So like for you, you take people fishing all the time. Has that worn any on your desire to like go fishing for yourself or
No.
no? Good.
No.
Okay.
And because like earlier, like I said, you always have a new group with that new first day
Yeah.
excitement. But then also if like this last year I'm glad that I'm at the point now that I can do this, but I can't do what I did last year again. I guided for 30 days in a row at one point, June and July. Can't do that anymore. But like by the end of that, like you're really dialed into something, and you just like, oh, I can't wait till that first free day that I can make a video.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah. No, that's good.
It doesn't.
Yeah, because like for me, it's like I have a marketing business and I make websites, I do
Mm,
Facebook ads, Google
okay.
ads, search engine optimization for all my clients. at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to do any of that for myself. I'm like, I'm tired of doing it, but I
Yeah,
need to do it, And so for me,
yeah,
I can't say, I wish that I could say, no, it hasn't had that impact. It's definitely had that impact on me.
yeah.
But
I mean,
so,
to be fair, there are days where like if we catch a limit in 3 hours and they want to get off the water, I'm like grateful that I can go home and take a nap.
right.
I'll be honest, but
Yeah.
like, I need one good day off and the next day I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's no, that's really good. And I had never I had never been walleye fishing. I didn't I guess I didn't
Mm,
realize how big like the guided walleye fishing industry was. I went
yeah.
to and I've never I went to Lake Erie this past about a year ago, and that's a huge walleye fishery. Like, I mean, there are boats and boats and boats that are flying out of there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and
Yep.
it's crazy. But man, it's a blast when you hook into a walleye.
Yeah.
Man, it is a blast. So
Well,
now,
the other thing too is like one of my favorite fish to fish for is smallmouth bass, and
mm,
everybody hates them up there. They're considered a nuisance species. They get in the way of the walleyes. So I don't,
wow,
maybe some of the people that watch your content like bass fishing. So I make a
yeah,
bunch of bass fishing, smallmouth bass fishing videos. I get no views. So
oh,
if anybody wants to check those out, please
right.
do. I love smallmouth too. Walleye's my favorite, but smallmouth are awesome. I love it.
Right. Man, just well, walleye eats really well. So
It
like
does.
it's one of my favorites. It
Yeah.
is probably my favorite fish to eat, honestly.
Yeah.
So um that typically and that's the difference I think. So like I'm a fly fisherman, right? Like I typically am always catch and release. So because like I'm not eating trout. I don't
Hmm.
like trout as much as I like just fried walleye, man. Fried
Yeah.
walleye, fried like whitefish. Oh man, it's my favorite.
Yeah.
And so um, but man, it's just what a cool experience. It's like, and it's so different too, I think, from being on because at least I imagine so the boat we were on was kind of like a center it wasn't really a center console boat, it was a covered, I don't know what you would call it, but there's a couple of types, a couple of methods, right? You can troll or you can jig, and when you and I were talking it was like, man, jigging is like your favorite thing to do
Yeah.
for fishing because you're fishing, right? You're
Yep.
actually like fishing for the
Yep.
fish versus just throwing it out there and trolling and waiting
Yeah.
for one to hook on. But man, it's if you've never been walleye fishing, then now you guys know Brett is you're the only conventional fisherman that I've talked to on this show.
Oh wow,
So
really?
yeah,
Okay.
like most of my
Cool.
guys are fly fishing guys. So
Awesome.
I'm stoked that you're the first one. Um, and two, man, I think we talked about this too. Is like, hey, man, you're welcome to come do some trout fishing here on the South Holston River, 8,500 wild brown trout per mile. Just throwing it out there.
That's
Actually, if you're
amazing.
listening, it's not that great. Don't come. We're gonna leave it that way. But so, man, as you have been running, you said this is your fifth season. So, what is your absolute favorite thing? And I think I already know the answer, but I'm gonna ask that question anyway. What's your favorite thing about running an outfitter business?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, yes, it's cool selfishly that I get to fish all the time, but I think it's really important that you like watching other people experience the thing. And I really do. Like, I didn't know if that was going to be the case till I started, but I really do. Like, there are
Hmm.
some days, actually, most days, that's more fun. And I think that's the key for me.
Yeah,
I
just
love watching other people light up.
yeah. I I've never guided fishing before. I was a raft guide when I was a guide. But I took my kids fishing. They've been conventional for bluegill and stuff like that before,
Yeah.
but they'd never been fly fishing before. And so we went camping this fall in a little mountain creek that is an hour away from my house.
Yeah.
Took my fly rods up there, and all of my kids caught their first fish, first trout on a fly rod, and it was just like seeing my daughter, like my youngest son, he didn't want to touch the fish, but my daughter was like, "Oh, I'll hold it, Daddy!" Like, and she was all like in it, and so it was like it was just really cool.
Yeah.
It was cooler to see them catch a fish than it was for me to catch a fish because
Yeah.
two, I think there's two kind of things there, right? Like you get to experience because you've caught tons of fish at this point. I've caught tons of fish. But
Hmm.
to see like the sheer excitement and joy, you get to kind of relive that a little bit, and you get to
Yep.
remember that in your own journey of like, oh man, I
Yeah.
remember what that was like for myself. So it's like
Yeah.
this
It always
cool,
brings you back to that
yeah,
day when you
yeah,
got into it. Yeah.
yeah, man, that's so cool. And that's why I love fishing so much, right? It's not just about the fit, like it's more than fishing. you
Yeah.
know, little
Yeah.
plug for you. Um,
Absolutely.
so, and I think I can't remember who said this, but it was like some men go fishing all of their lives and like never realize that it's not fish that they're looking for, right? I
uh
may have butchered that, but
I get it.
it's a cool
Yeah.
concept of just being in a place where in a society in the world that we live in that is so constant, so busy, that is nonstop. Like when you're fishing, you're there. That's all you're
Mhm.
thinking about. Like at least for
Yep.
me, I can say that. Like it's my mind is calm, it's relaxed. I'm not thinking about, what I got to do tomorrow. I'm just thinking
Mhm.
about, man, I'm on the water. I'm having a good time. I'm just enjoying this moment right now.
Mhm.
So it forces you to be present, not in a bad way, but like in a really healthy, good way to be present in a moment, which I think many of us struggle with, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like
So,
meditation and stuff is so popular
mm,
these days, right? For good reason. But if somebody doesn't like the idea or fights the idea of, sitting and meditating, like
yeah.
that's what meditation is being present.
Mm.
If fishing gets you there, that's awesome.
Yeah, man, that's no, that's really good. So you were talking a little bit earlier that there's guys that have been out there doing this for 40 years. There's guys, there's tons of people that are, in this industry that are really your competitors.
Hmm.
But like, so what sets you apart from those guys? What makes you different than them?
Yeah, I guess kind of like I said earlier, what I tried to make my differentiator was my communication skills and my
Mhm.
teaching ability. And I think now that I've been around long enough to have a presence, like I've gotten a number of clients that come from YouTube. I see a lot of people out on the water that wave at me and yell my name because they watched a YouTube video, which is
That's cool.
pretty awesome. But like, I think they're getting to know my personality. And I made it a point, like you said earlier, like I tried to be authentic in the YouTube videos. I just tried to be myself. I'm not putting on a show. I'm like, we made a video about my brother losing those two fish. Like,
Mm.
that's something that a fishing guide probably shouldn't do for marketing purposes. But that's what happened. That's reality. That's life. So like I think there's been enough people that I don't know, just appreciate that I'm being real, I think. At least I
Mm.
hope. And you know, it's a business based on catching fish, but it's also if you're a solo entrepreneur, let's be honest, it's about you and your personality and whether or not people like you. So
Yeah.
and the only way they're gonna know if they like you is if you're real.
Yeah. Man, that's you just said something that I think is really important for the people that are listening that are in the same industry that are, trying to turn their passion into their profession, is that people aren't buying your business. Like they're buying you.
Yeah.
They're fishing with you.
Hmm.
And I think that that's such an important part of, and especially in the guide industry, right? Is like it's so relational. You can't be a jerk and be a good guide. You're not going to last long. Like
Right.
you generally have to like care for people to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Are people still going to get on your nerves? Yeah, sure, everyone
Yeah.
does, but you genuinely have to like have a heart for people and want to connect with people. And
Yeah, I think so.
that's what I think is that shift. And that's what I always try to encourage, my clients in is like, hey man, don't try to go out there and just try to make everything all glitzy and glammy. Like just be you, and people will like you. So if you're a good person, if you're a jerk, they probably won't, but so
That's
just
that's
be a
the
good.
weird thing though. Like some people can even like in an odd way appreciate a jerk if they know they're
That's true.
real.
Right.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah. Yeah, that's
Like the
true.
closer you are to like who you really are, I feel like there's something attractive about that. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but it is.
Yeah.
You can
No,
be a little bit of a jerk as long as you don't try to hide it or you don't, I don't know.
right.
I don't, hopefully I'm not too much of one. I don't think I am, but
Only
just
when
be
they're
yourself. Like that's, I don't know, that's my message, I guess. Be yourself. That's the best way to do it. You
yeah.
can't fake anything else.
Yeah, except for when they, bird's nest your reel like six times in a
Yeah.
row, and you're like, dude, okay, yeah, you just can't do this. You can't fish
Yeah.
anymore.
I've been angry sometimes for sure. Part of the deal.
Yeah, man. So as we kind of wrap things up here, I have well two more questions, but this question, I think we have three types of people that listen to this show. I know we have three types of people that listen to this show. One are people like yourself that have been doing this for a little while. Um, And they're going to listen to this and they're going to be like, oh man, they're going to remember when, they were at where you're at. They're going to learn some things too from, your experience, because all of our experiences are different. So they're going to learn some things. They're going to be encouraged by that, inspired by that, hopefully. And two, I think they're just people that are listening that are like, man, I'm just looking for, the next outfitter that I want to go fish with, that I want to go
Hmm.
kayak with or hunt with, whatever it may be. They're just looking to make that connection, right? To hear the stories of the people that, are doing the things that they're passionate about too. And the third, and this is the one that I'm most passionate about, are the people that have a passion, but that fear is still kind of like superseding their desire to launch. And
Hmm.
what would you say to them if you could encourage that person who's thinking about launching, an outfitter business, a guide business? What would you say to them right now to encourage them to push forward?
Yeah, so I mean, I would start off with some of what we were saying before in the sense of like, you got to be really clear why you're doing it. Like, if somebody says, I want to be a fishing guy because I love fishing, like that's maybe a prerequisite, but it's not enough.
Mm,
Because first of all, it's not just about you, it's about your client. You have to love them loving fishing. And then there's also all that other dirty work that you have to do. So like, I always remember that, I think it's Mark Manson or something that has some like self-help books or something, but he has this amazing quote, something to the extent of like, don't do something because you love that thing so much, but like do something that you can put up with the worst parts of it, that you can deal with all the bad. If you start doing something and you feel like you can deal with that bad stuff more than you can deal with the bad stuff of something else, like it's sustainable.
mm,
But then I would also say, like, if you're at that point, you got all that stuff nailed down. Like, the big trigger for me was at one point, one of my investment company businesses got sold and I had to find a new job. So like, I was a good employee. I got promoted. I had raises, all that kind of stuff. I got good rankings, but weird stuff can just happen. And all of a sudden, I realized I thought I was doing this for financial stability, but that's not stable either.
mm.
So it seems like a risk to start your own thing, but everything's risky.
Yeah, I like that. Everything is risky, right?
Yeah,
And we find a sense of comfort in what we think is comfortable because it's
yeah,
familiar. But
yep,
man, it's not. You could be hit by a car tomorrow driving the
hmm,
same route that you drive to work every single day. And
yeah.
so it is kind of a little cliche to be like, I live every day like it's your last, but it's the truth. You never
It could
know.
be.
You know,
Yeah,
there's only two certain things in life, death and taxes. So,
hmm,
um,
yeah.
man, Brett, I've really enjoyed talking with you and just getting to hear a little bit about your story and your passion. It's pretty clear to see it just speaking with you, so that excites me. Man, if people want to connect with you, whether it be to book a trip with you, to buy your book, to watch your YouTube channel, how do people find you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, it's pretty much Bloemendaal Fishing everywhere. So the website's bloemendaalfishing.com. The YouTube channel is Bloemendaal Fishing. I got a Facebook page that I think is actually Bloemendaal Guide Service. That's the name of the guide service. It's a Dutch name, so people don't know how to spell it. Bloemendaal, Bloemendaal Fishing. And then Fishing for More is the book that's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and you can find it on the website too. So
Very cool. And as always, I will link to all of that stuff in the show notes here. Man, go support Brett, buy a book, book a trip, watch his YouTube videos, and then share those YouTube videos too with all your friends. But man, Brett, it's been awesome chatting with you. I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, man, would love to even in the future have you come back again and just continue to talk about what the journey's been like post the Outfitter Pros podcast and see kind of where you went from there and if you've learned anything new or not. And maybe we can just talk about fishing more. I don't know.
yeah, I'd love that. It's been a blast for me too, man. Thanks so much. I'm really grateful. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, the privilege is mine. So, Brett, hey, is a pleasure talking with you, and yeah, looking forward to following you on your journey.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, take care. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Outfitter Pros podcast, do us a favor, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google, wherever you get your podcast, subscribe. And the second thing you can do is leave us a review. This really helps us to get more traction, get more exposure on the platform that you're listening to, so we can continue to share the stories of outdoor entrepreneurs across North America and inspire the next generation to pursue their passion for their profession.